Is it really worth it to take your RV up to Alaska?
Are the roads truly as bad as everyone says they are?
Is everything more expensive?
Do grizzly bears appear from behind every corner?
These are the questions we had before driving our fifth wheel up the Alaska highway to spend our summer in the last frontier. We made it! From remote villages of McCarthy to the moody coastlines of Seward and Homer to the majestic Alaska mountain range, which is home to the tallest mountain in North America, we covered a lot of ground. In this episode, we're breaking down our experience, sharing all of our thoughts, both good and bad, so you know what to expect if you decide to make the trip yourself, or if you're simply curious about what's involved. We also talk about the costs you should expect and share our final spending totals from the extra $15,000 we saved in preparation for this trip. How much money do we actually have left? Keep watching to find out. We're gonna share a lot of good information with you in this video, and throughout each topic or category section, we're also gonna tackle the questions that we received from our YouTube community.
So grab yourself a bowl of popcorn, mix up your favorite beverage, because we've got a lot of ground to cover.
And we're gonna try to make it interesting. Let's start with planning and prep.
Okay, well then I can go away from this one.
Why? Because you did like nothing? Well, I first want to start with like, when do you want to go to Alaska? Because I don't think we did this one correctly.
Well, you definitely don't want to go in January unless you like the cold.
Don't be dumb.
I'm not being dumb. Unless you like the cold, don't go in January.
We crossed over middle of June, ended about August 26th, I think. And I actually wish we had shifted it a little bit more like earlier.
To May.
To May. The locals that we talked to said like mid-May to mid-June is probably gonna be your best. By the time you get to August, it's so rainy and so dreary, and you're pulling out your generator every day because you can't get enough sun for solar. So if you're considering going to Alaska and you wanna drive your RV up there, I definitely would say look into May and June more.
Another thing to think about with the weather as you go to Alaska is the days go from very short to very, very long. So in the middle of June is the summer solstice, and it's the home of the midnight sun, and that takes a little bit of getting used to. So if you're there a little earlier, I think you might have a chance to kind of
it might actually be better.
Get your way into that. Whereas we traveled north pretty quickly in June, and suddenly the sun wasn't setting until basically at all.
Yeah, and when we say like light most of the night, it's like a dusk. It's a dusk that is like 1 or 2 in the morning. But because of that, a lot of people have asked us, well, did you get to see the aurora? No.
Actually, we did once.
At the end.
Toward the end of the trip, as the daylight hours started going away again, you have to have very dark skies to get good aurora.
You did get a couple shots.
Yep, I got a couple shots
August.
when we were in Houston just before we went to Denali. Got to see the aurora in Alaska, which was really cool.
In terms of how far in advance do you plan? Because we had a question, I'd like to know, like, did you have to book your excursions in advance, especially the plane tour of Denali? So I was actually really bad at this because I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna book Brooks Falls like 6 to 8 months in advance, and we didn't. And we were actually okay. I did that one a month in advance. It is very popular. If you were going in July, because we went in like beginning of August, if you were going in July, in fact, I would say this for all of Alaska in July is very congested. So if you have anything, especially around the 4th of July, you're gonna have a hard time finding campgrounds.
Yeah, we were outside of Seward, and we actually considered a campground based on the boondocking options, and there were no campgrounds available.
Because everyone was celebrating the 4th. Which, fun fact, you can't actually see fireworks because it's not dark around the 4th.
That's true.
But anyway, I would say any excursion in July, book in advance. Talkeetna Air, our flight scene tour, we actually only booked a few days in advance.
And then we canceled, and then we booked
again. But this was mid-August, so people had already left. They were currently leaving, so I don't think it's as big a deal to book that far in advance, but I also don't want you to like wait until a week before and then not get something and then blame me. I just realized I need a prop for this next one. We're still on the same topic of planning, and the milepost here, was like our first Alaska purchase. I could like,
it started.
Oh, I'm so excited.
First,
this just made it real. And it is the Bible. Everyone tells you to get it.
There's references and everything. You go through, you have all the little milepost numbers and stuff like that.
Chapter and verse. I thought I would use this for pre-planning, and this is not the purpose of the milepost.
At least for you.
At least for me.
Yeah.
Because it's so detailed. I actually found it very helpful when we were on the roads to see where were the pull-offs, where was the next diesel station, where were the cinnamon buns on the Alaska Highway to stop by.
And finding cool points of interest too. There were a few times we were driving that Kalyn would just pull it out and be like, okay, well this lake is known for this.
Our next kilometer stone.
Kilometer stone.
And it just made the trip a little bit more interesting, and especially good to have because you're not going to have cell service a lot, like on the roads up to Alaska and even around Alaska. And so it's always good to know, like, oh, I can't Google the next fuel station. Where is that going to be? So I would not recommend using this for pre-planning. I actually think, like what we have shared, is a good way to learn what you do and what not to do. Our first people that we followed that went up to Alaska that kind of got the bug in our ear was Less Junk, More Journey. We saw them doing it, thought it looked really cool.
Then we watched Adventures in A+K. We watched their videos up there. We
when
watched
they went to Alaska.
Hanks who were up there a year ago. And just watching a bunch of videos kind of gives you an idea of, oh, that excursion I want to go on, that excursion I don't want to go on, just based on other people's experience. Now you have to remember, not everybody's experience is the same. Somebody can go to Brooks Falls and have an entirely different experience than someone else. So it's good to kind of get a variety of views when making those decisions. Now, I do know some people ask the question, what's your opinion on getting the current milepost? Do you have to wait for the 2025
so
or can you get...
This is actually interesting because I bought the 2023 because it wasn't out yet. I think it comes out in April, the new edition. So you can snag the newest edition before you go, but I wanted to... I was just really excited. So Victoria from Wild RV Life, Victoria and Craig, they bought the 2024 edition, and we were kind of on the walkies on some of these roads comparing, like, okay, what page number is this, or what does this say? And it was pretty much the same.
I feel like for the most part, the milepost is kind of like a college textbook where
Can I resell this?
There is going to be relevant new information, but it's going to be such a small amount. And everything else they might just rearrange a little bit to make it a little bit different.
And if you want like true up to date, then you've got, it's like Alaska 511 or Yukon 511 to see if there are road construction.
Closures, fire closures,
that's
stuff
where you're
like
going to
that.
get the most up-to-date info.
That's super important. While we're on the topic of planning and preparation, we also want to cover all the things that we did to the rig and to the truck before we actually jumped on the road heading to Alaska. And I'm going to fall off the side of this hill.
We're probably in the minority because we did not buy a lot of spare parts to take with us on this trip. However, we did invest in really good tires for the truck.
Did a bunch of research into this. I ended up getting the BF Goodrich all-terrain TA KO2 tire. And I have to say, this is the best tire I have had on this truck since we've had it over the past 5 years. So much so that I'm not going to get a different tire when these tires wear out. I'm going with this same brand. I just have loved the way they've worn. They are a little potentially on the noisier side since they are an all-terrain tire, but they're just awesome. I wanted to go with a more aggressive tread tire because I wasn't sure what sort of situations I might get into in Alaska. We did get in one situation where we had to take a really steep hill.
Oh my word. Look at how steep that is.
And I don't know if I would have made it on my last set of tires, so these ones came through. If you have a four-wheel drive, you'll have less to worry about, but with the two-wheel drive truck, I just wanted to take that extra precaution and have really aggressive tires.
We also got a tow strap in case we got in a predicament, which we didn't use.
It's still in the box.
It's still in the box, but that was recommended to us. Windshield repair kit.
We used 2 of those.
If you missed our trip up the Alaska Highway, we did get a windshield crack between Watson Lake and Whitehorse. And so we made sure, we had one already, but we made sure we picked up an extra one because gravel it flies. And a tire patch kit.
Which we carry that with us all the time anyway. It's also good to have spare fuel on hand just in case you get into a situation where you're too far from a fuel station. This gets you an extra 60 to 120 miles depending on your gas mileage. I feel like this goes without saying, but I do think if you go to Alaska, any of the roads up there, you should have a spare tire for your truck. You should have a spare tire for your RV, not just a donut, but I don't think you need to take 3 spare tires for each vehicle. 1 should do it, especially if you have a patch kit and know how to patch your tires.
I know we spend a lot of time on planning and prep, but I feel like it's important to know.
It's half the journey, actually.
Yes. So let's move on to driving to Alaska, like the actual trip.
You can leave this one.
What? I can leave this one because you just did all the driving, but I told you where to go. And we're in the truck. We're not going anywhere. We just thought like...
Change of scenery.
Yeah, change of scenery, and it matched the topics. So we got a couple questions on how long to comfortably take your time to go to Alaska, like to be able to see some stuff along the way, like what is the actual trip? And so I can
This is such a hard question to answer.
It depends.
Because there's so many variables. We were working full time the whole time we were up there. You might have a limited time, and if you're on vacation, you can, go see things every day. You might not want to go see things every day.
Right.
And so it's so difficult. So the best thing we can do is give you our experience.
And also make some calculations for you based on maybe your travel style.
Yep.
So we crossed the border into BC at Rooseville, which is west of Glacier National Park in Montana, and then we went all the way to Beaver Creek, Yukon, which is the town right before the border of Alaska. And so the mileage for that is 1,838 miles. Now, we've been clear before that we try to stick around like the 300 mile a day range, which if you were breaking that down and also trying to take into account that you might go slower because the roads aren't as great, you'd probably take a full week, like a full 7 days.
And that's just driving. That's not taking
driving.
Any breaks.
That's like if you just want to go, you don't have anything else to do but drive, then I would say 6 to 7 days to do it. So let's say you actually want to take a little bit of time. You want a week or two in the Canadian Rockies, you want to spend some time at Liard, maybe visit some other Canadian provincial parks, then I would say I have about like 2.5 to 3 weeks to get from border to border. I think that would give you enough time. However, this is still if you're not working, if you're purely on vacation and you're just able to drive and adventure and explore. Now for us, we took about a month. I think it was actually exactly a month. It was May 18th to June 16th, I believe. So that was 2 weeks in the Canadian Rockies. That was 5 days at Dawson Creek before we hopped on the Alcan, 5 days at Liard, and then we did like a big 3-day push to finish the rest of the Alcan. And I think that was pretty good for us. It gave us a good amount of time to explore, still have driving days, and also still have 6 to 8 hour work days because we're creating content, we're editing these videos as well as filming them, and then I'm also doing some work for my business on the side, my productivity website.
So I would say if you have a work from home job or something like that, having the month seemed to work out pretty well.
Yeah, that was the right amount of time. I also want to talk about fuel stops because we had a question like, what is the maximum number of miles that you have between fuel stops?
I can get 220 miles when towing on ideal conditions with the
I do think it is important to know how long you can go,
yes,
especially with the light on,
yes,
which we have a lot of experience
We know exactly how far we can
go.
So
anyway, when I did some calculations between fuel stops, the longest that we went was about 143 miles, 145 miles max, so easily doable. You do not need to stop at every single station like they say you do. We thought we had to do that. There's actually a lot more stations up there than we thought.
We never got close to running out of fuel.
Yep, that was not a worry.
Unless you think the light on is close to running out of fuel.
Then we did that a couple of times.
But we knew how far the gas station was away, and we knew we were fine.
When it comes to road conditions on the Alcan, again, not as bad as we thought.
Maybe we take what we see on the internet as like extra drama. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. But we thought it was going to be, well, even the trucker we met on our way up the Alcan, you're about to rip your RV apart.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the case at all. It was not the case. The worst road that we've ever taken our RV up or down was in Texas for our gate guarding job. It was 6 miles long, giant potholes. So that's kind of our bar in our head, a road that you can only go 7-8 miles an hour on, or you will damage your RV.
But if you're used to just completely paved highways, yeah, you're gonna be like, this is bad. It was not terrible. I would say there were gravel sections, like I mentioned before, where we cracked our windshield between Watson Lake and Whitehorse to be aware of. So slow down on those, because people on the other side don't slow down and then they send them straight into your window. The worst part of road was when you get to Destruction Bay. There's a little gas station there, and then after that, all the way to Tok into Alaska was probably the worst.
There were big sections of potholes and frosting.
Having to take it so slow. However, here's where Canada shines and Alaska does not.
100% agree.
Canada has exceptional signage.
Yes.
And almost like every frost heave, they'll tell you when rough roads are coming up. They'll be like, okay, you just need to be really aware. You need to slow down. Love Canada.
Their bar for putting a sign up to tell you that there's a bump is a pothole.
Yeah.
Like if there's a pothole coming, there's a sign at the pothole saying, hey, there's a pothole here. Now, why they don't fix it, never mind.
Don't need to get into that.
But Alaska's bar for letting you know that there's a problem with the road is you're about to lose your RV.
Right, that's when they'll put a sign up.
I do want to say, when it comes to the roads, Kalyn said if you're expecting paved roads, if you're expecting to drive 65 miles an hour the whole way, get rid of that expectation. Drive speeds appropriate for the roads. Respect your rig, respect your truck. You're not going to have a problem driving the roads.
Yeah. And I know we're going to talk about campgrounds and places to stay in Alaska, but I will say that the entire Alaska highway is littered with pullouts that you can pull out and camp at. I don't think we ever saw a no overnight camping sign. So know that you have places to pull off to check your rig, to have, rest stop, and be able to stay overnight and start again the next morning. So that's the route to Alaska.
Yep.
I guess we could stay in the truck for this next one.
Sure.
Because it's the route in Alaska. Do you go counterclockwise or clockwise? Because apparently we did it wrong.
We did it backwards.
I don't know wrong.
Nobody said we were doing it wrong.
Yeah.
It's just that everybody else went the other way.
Right. So when we say the other way, everyone seemed to start at Fairbanks, go down to Denali, the Kenai, over to Valdez, and then up. Whereas we started like at Wrangell St. Elias, Valdez, and like ended at Fairbanks. Yeah, the benefit to doing it our way is I think you get to see the coastline with a little bit more sun.
At least in 2024.
Right. And especially if you go earlier, if you go in May, if you go in June, you are going to get more sun. Whereas the coastline is just notorious for being rainy and cloudy and that moody vibe, which is kind of fun for a day, but not for weeks on end.
And it's not so great if you live off solar.
So if you're doing coastal Alaska in August, just expect that all of Alaska is basically rain in August.
And I know some people had more luck seeing Denali early in the year.
That's
and
true,
I don't
because it was sunnier.
And I don't know again if that's 2024 weather and 2025 is going to be completely different. But I was seeing some pretty epic photos from within Denali National Park of people seeing Denali from the ground, and whereas it's a roll of the dice whether or not you're going to be able to see it from the ground. But I highly recommend the flight. The flight's good and it counts.
Flight was amazing.
It counts as being in a national park.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I see what you're doing. You're slipping it in there.
Slipping it in.
I did put together a Google map that tracks and follows our route up through Canada and in Alaska, shares all the places that we stayed, the boondocking spots, the campgrounds, the activities that we did. I only put restaurants and food places in that we actually loved so that you can get like the best of the best. Because we did end up eating out quite a bit.
We did.
Yeah, and I'll also put all our activities and excursions in there as well. So if you kind of want to use that as a jumping off point, it's completely free. I'll leave a link in the description where you can just add your email address, let us know where we can send it to you, and then you'll get an email with a link to that map. Quick, before we move on to the next topic, let's talk about roads in Alaska, because I know you wanted to get to that.
Basically, it's the same as Canada. Frost heaves, dirt here and there and whatnot. Most of the main roads are really good. You get around Anchorage, the roads are
Those are good. I would say, so McCarthy's an outlier because that's just like rental cars are not allowed to go down McCarthy, and we took our rig down it. But when I was thinking about what were the worst roads that we had in Alaska, all roads lead to Tok.
Yes.
So if you think from Destruction Bay in Canada to Tok, really bad.
Yep.
If you go from Toke to Glen Allen,
Really
which
bad.
was really bad. If you go from Toke to Chicken, which
Really
we took
bad.
out of Alaska, really bad. So
even that was worse than the top of the world highway.
Yeah.
The top of the world highway was better condition than.
yeah,
You're right.
Once
That's good.
you get a ways past Toke, then you're good. Is it on par with Destruction Bay to Toke now?
This section is, that's for sure. Oh, shall we talk about boondocking? Is that in your?
Okay. It's next. It's where to stay.
All right, where to stay.
So I think we should, let's go, actually, it's getting hot in here.
It is getting warm in here.
So
We're not in Alaska
let's
anymore.
go sit outside the RV in some chairs. This feels much better out here in the shade. Okay, where to stay.
Oh boy.
We had a question, best campground options in Alaska and Canada. Well, we kind of talked about Canada already, but
if you're from Alaska, you might want to skip this section.
Yeah. She goes on to say there didn't seem to be great boondocking. Yes, that would be correct.
That would be correct.
And we said this through a lot of our videos.
And we got a little bit of flack from it as far as like, oh, there's good boondocking in Alaska. There's a couple caveats that you need to add to when you say there's good boondocking. There's good boondocking if you're a van or a small class C. There's some nice beach boondocking that we actually tried to take the fifth wheel down to and almost, that didn't work out so well. And if you're anywhere near the places that you're wanting to do activities, the boondocking is just mainly pull-offs.
Mainly pull-offs on the side of the road, yeah.
And a lot of paying for dry camping as well.
Yep, so if you're too big to be in the nice boondocking spots, which we were, and you don't want to be on the side of the road and listen to cars going by like every 5 minutes, then you can usually stay in a large parking lot, like a trailhead parking lot, but that's, the cheapest we found was $15 a night at Gold Mint Trailhead. No, obviously dry camping and everything.
I do think there was a parking lot higher up that was cheaper, that was like $10 a night.
It was just 1,000 more feet in elevation.
Which is going to be colder.
You have to consider that it's going to be colder the higher you go up the mountain. So we're coming at it from Alaska, doesn't have great boondocking, but again with the caveat of rig size. And we're also used to like real time. We're here outside the Badlands National Park in South Dakota, and this is free and it's got a great view. So you're not going to really get that.
I'm used to the further out west we go, and the more space there is, the more public land there is that has been developed a little bit for this sort of use. And I'm like, Alaska's a huge state.
So
it's
remote.
the last frontier. There's gonna be forest roads that you can park. Nope. Now, there is one other spot that you can do some good boondocking, and that is past Chicken, toward top of the world.
We really
there were a
liked that.
lot of spaces there, even from Fairbanks to Toke, there were some. But again, in those spots, you're getting away from the tourist attractions or whatever it is that you're going to Alaska for. So if you want to just go hang out at a boondocking spot, hours away from everything, there is some.
One thing I will mention about boondocking availability too is there are a lot of riverbeds that you can boondock in, and there was one outside Seward. We just didn't feel comfortable getting onto the riverbed with our size rig, so again, it comes down to the size of the rig. I will say, camp on the riverbed at your own risk. We didn't think it was a huge issue, but then we talked to some locals because that one in particular is down the road from Exit Glacier. And actually what happened in Juneau when we were up there can happen there, where the glacier just bursts and all the water comes rushing down. So that's not to scare you. That's just to
be
say,
aware.
be aware if you're gonna park on the riverbed, because a lot of boondocking areas are on the river.
The chances of it happening, probably pretty small, but is it a risk you're willing to take? Know that a flash flood could happen if you're parked below a glacier.
Now moving on to campgrounds, because we did actually spend more on campgrounds than we thought we would, and I have the price here. We're gonna go through spending a little bit later, but just to give you a ballpark, we spent like $2,500 on campgrounds. And the thing about campgrounds in Alaska, except for the KOA in Fairbanks, which was so nice to stay in, most of them are very dingy looking, not well maintained, and I think again that's due to their short season, but you will expect to pay a lot for the dingy looking campgrounds. Now the Fairbanks KOA was $80 a night, which is very pricey for us, but it was extremely nice.
It was worth every penny. We pulled in and it's just like, oh wow, you've got green space next to you. You aren't crammed next to another RV, and they had a dog park that you could run the dog in.
But other campgrounds, they're gonna be anywhere from $70 to $90 a night for not really great spots. So just be aware of that if you are going to primarily stay in campgrounds, which if you have a big size rig like us, that's just gonna be your reality.
And we did not visit or see every single campground that exists everywhere. So if you have been up in Alaska and you're like, but you missed this campground or this campground is great.
You have a favorite campground,
drop it in the comments, because we obviously, there's absolutely chances that we missed some beautiful campgrounds up there. But as we did our, I say we, you did all the searching, but as you did all the searching, like we did not find them. We did not find them.
Now I didn't know where to slide this topic in.
Right here.
Okay, Starlink internet. Because you can't rely on campground Wi-Fi. Starlink, I think, is a necessity.
Yeah.
It just is.
Especially if you're working from the road.
Yes. Now, when we first saw Less Junk More Journey 5 years ago go up to Alaska, Starlink, I think, was in the beginning of stages of being worked on.
I think they must watch current Alaska travelers and be like, y'all have it so easy.
Yeah, because they were uploading their YouTube videos in internet cafes.
That they were having to pay by the hour for.
So there's a lot of service around Anchorage and the towns and everything, but when you're boondocking or staying in campgrounds that don't have great Wi-Fi, you're going to want something reliable, and Starlink is probably going to be the most reliable. However, it was not as amazing as we have seen in the lower 48 due to less satellites in the air that are kind of pointing to less.
Yeah, and we talked to some locals, and they said it has even gotten better over the past couple years. They have seen as more satellites and whatnot get up there. But like we were in, wherever we went, we would often see speeds of like 20 megabits down, maybe 30 megabits down, as opposed to where we are right here, where we're getting 200 megabits down.
So just use Starlink, but expect it to be a little bit slower than what you're used to. All right, next topic. You just want to stay here?
Yeah, it's comfy.
Okay. Let's go and talk about activities, which we have sort of sprinkled in a little bit, in the activities that we've done, kind of our approach to it. We've talked before, Alaska's a gamble when it comes to weather. It's also a gamble when it comes to wildlife. So it's really hit or miss being able to book ahead of time to know if you're going to get great weather and to know if the bears are going to show up.
But book what you want to book and just know that going in. Like know that the chance is that you might not get your money's worth. You might not feel like you got your money's worth.
But almost just to be aware of the costs, we spent about $5,100 on activities. Now we did a marine cruise, we walked on a glacier, we did the flight tour, we did Lake Clark, the boat to Lake Clark, we did Brooks Falls. Excursions are going to be expensive if you're looking at doing tours, which we were like, we don't know if we were going to go to Alaska again. We wanted to experience it through the tours, but those are going to be your priciest things to spend money on.
And if you're going to go see bears, if it's an excursion that has bears in the title, it's going to be a little bit more pricey. What did you say? It was like a bear tax. It's like a bear tax.
It's not a literal thing, but it's like if wildlife is involved, especially bears, they're going to hike up the prices.
Now, I will say, I was actually a little surprised at some of the excursions weren't as expensive as I expected. The Denali flight was not as expensive as I expected it to be. It was expensive.
Yeah, it was like $400 a piece for each of us for an hour and a half.
Yeah. And I expected it to be closer to $1,000 a piece, just because it's in Alaska, it's going around Denali. The glacier tour was not that expensive.
I think that was I paid a total of like 200 something for that.
And I know like when Craig and Victoria did their ice climbing, that wasn't crazy expensive. So there are activities up there. I mean, if something was more than $20 is considered to be expensive, then it's all astronomically expensive, but it was not as pricey as I expected for some of those.
Someone asked if there were places we wanted to see and didn't get to. So I think something I didn't understand about Alaska too is they call it the road system, okay? So this is the main system that you can get to in your RV, and there's a lot outside of that that is more remote that you're gonna have to take a boat to or a plane ride to.
And those can get expensive in a hurry.
Very expensive. So yeah, there's other places we want to see, but they're going to take plane rides. There were 3 national parks that we did not get to because of plane rides or boat rides. Someone told us about Kodiak Island.
I was waiting to bring that up.
With the bears.
I want to go back to Kodiak Island.
Yeah, so it's like a different kind of species of grizzlies that looks really cool, but you have to take a boat or a flight there as well. So yeah, there's a lot of places that you can go off the road system, but you're like, the amount that we spent, the $5,100 in activities, would go way up if we added in those other
Well,
things.
and once you start talking about flights or boats, you talk about multi-day excursions, and then you have to be like, what are you doing with your rig? What are you doing with your pets?
Yep.
And we did one of those, but we didn't want to bug Craig and Victoria and be like, hey, can you watch Trinity again for another 3 days while we do something else? So you just have to take that into consideration. I feel like we saw all the highlights, the major highlights of the road system up there. So what's next?
Wildlife, which we've talked a little bit about already, but I wanted to hit this on a separate topic because, kind of like we alluded to in the intro, we thought we were going to see bears and moose everywhere.
And I think some people do have that experience.
They do.
We did not.
No, and we actually saw more wildlife coming up the Alaska Highway in Canada than we did into Alaska, which is why I guess maybe you want to do those tours where you can see the wildlife. The really cool wildlife that we saw a lot of and we're excited about were eagles.
Oh, yes.
If you go down to Homer, the eagles are
or even Valdez.
everywhere. Yeah, Valdez too. So Valdez, you can walk down in the evening pier time and they're cleaning the fish and the eagles will come in and swoop and get like the extra fish, which is just, it's a fun and free activity to do. We enjoyed it. In Homer, they are on the beach, just kind of sitting on there. They're flying all around. So I think the eagles were pretty cool to see a bunch of them.
That was the animal by the time we left Alaska. The number of times we look up and be like, oh, that's an eagle.
Yeah.
And it didn't lose its luster, but it did a little bit. Like you're just like, oh, that's an eagle. And you don't find yourself keeping watching.
You don't grab your phone again.
Because you've seen so many.
Someone asked if there was what animals did we want to see most and were elusive. For me, I don't know about for you, I really wanted to see a close-up of a sea otter. And Victoria got some great footage of one, but I did not. And
you tried once.
I tried. I kept running down the beach and it kept swimming away. So, but around the coast, they're supposedly everywhere. A lot of people have seen them. I did not. It was elusive for me.
We saw a couple on the major marine tour, but again, they were further away.
So far away, yeah.
Yeah. I would say the bears. Like I just expected, I expected at like waterfalls and stuff to be able to pull off and like see some bears doing some things, and we did not see it. Even on our way back, I might be jumping ahead, but we stopped through Hyder. And I know it was closer to the end of the season. It was less likely to see a bear there, but still, it's just everywhere we went, I was kind of expecting to see a bear on the side of the road or whatever, and we did not see them.
Which is kind of sad. I'm gonna put mosquitoes in this section as
That's not wildlife.
But people tell you the mosquitoes are crazy, and
depends on the year.
Depends on the year and depends on the part of Alaska that you're in.
Yep.
So this year, according to locals, it was not as bad as previous years. And we did notice that they were a little bit in Tok when we first got in, a lot around Glen Allen
Root
and
Glacier.
McCarthy. Yeah, they're not actually on the glacier.
But on our way. That was the worst mosquitoes we had.
Yeah, we know. You made it very clear.
I'm having a good time. Just, I'm gonna have one giant like mosquito bite on top of my neck by the time we're done with this. And we had nets we bought nets and they stayed in the RV, and the times we could have used them, they were still in the RV.
So we just really relied on spray. But if I had remembered, I think on that hike to put them in the backpack, we would have used the nets.
And locals can correct me on this, drop it in the comments, but I again believe if you come early May, mosquitoes aren't so bad, and then end of season, they're not so bad.
They were sort of like tapering off by August, I would say, and even into September. We're gonna go over the rest of our spending costs in a little bit, but first we have a souvenir from Alaska that we haven't tried and we are excited to dig into.
I know this is gonna come as a shock to everybody watching, but we're eating lunch. We're gonna have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
I'm not, I'm gonna just have a piece of toast.
Oh, you're just having a piece of toast?
Yeah.
Well, I'm having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Because we have to try fireweed jelly. So our friends, Aaron and Jesse, and their sweet family, they have 5 boys, they live in Wasilla, and we know them from like a past life back in New York and where we grew up. And so they made fireweed jelly, which if you don't know what fireweed is, it is a really pretty like pink purplish plant that grows all over Alaska. Actually,
I'm just step right in front of you and grab the toaster.
Thank you while I'm talking. I think we saw some in Canada as well, and you can make jelly and different things from the
Blossoms.
Okay, thank you. I was like, leaves, blossoms. No, I wasn't having like a
The
brain
fruit.
malfunction, but the fruit. Anyway, so we're gonna try it. We've been saving it for this special occasion, for this video, to be able to like get our first reactions. I think it's supposed to be like honey/jelly, which is why I don't want to put it with peanut butter, because I want to get like the full experience of it on a piece of toast by itself.
And I want to get the full experience of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with fireweed jelly. Oh, that is a cool color. Look at the color like through the light.
That is cool.
Is that too much jelly for your toast?
No, I think that'll work.
Sending people through the roof right now by doing this right on the peanut butter.
Do you see? Look at peanut butter. You're mixing.
This is why people have frustrations with the way we make peanut butter jelly and jelly sandwich, Kalyn. But you do it that way too.
Don't.
So don't get on my case.
Don't blame me.
I'm debating, do I try the peanut butter and jelly sandwich first, or do I just try the jelly? I think I'm gonna try the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and then I will sample just the jelly. Okay, here we go.
All right, toast.
I've been waiting for this for like
I know,
a long time.
Saving it. It's so different.
I like it. It's very mild, but it's good.
I like it.
Let me try this.
Yeah, much milder than I thought it would be. But definitely jelly, definitely sweet. Not as much flour as I would have expected to come through.
Yeah, I was expecting a floral flavor.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it, but it's very good.
It is very hard to describe because you don't give it a floral scent, you don't give it like a fruity scent.
I think you're saying the honey thing, the honey element. Like it
That's
doesn't
what
it
Aaron
doesn't
told me,
taste like honey, but it is.
But it is.
It somehow doesn't taste like honey, but does taste like honey all at the same time.
A little piece of Alaska.
People are going to tell how many takes we've done on this based on how much sandwich we have left.
Toast is left. It's good. Okay, spending costs. It is time. It is time to talk about money. So we obviously saved $15,000 for this trip, and we're gonna get into that. We also stocked up to be able to save money on grocery prices, and that's what we're gonna tackle first, because we did a little experiment where we were saying, okay, what were the prices that we spent on these common items that we stocked up on, like peanut butter and bread and things like that, and then what were they gonna be in Canada along the way, what were they gonna be in like an Alaska Costco, and also a random small town, Alaska, that would be kind of like a more remote village. And so we crunched a lot of all these prices, and
which is doubly challenging because once you get Canada, you add a second currency,
exactly,
and a second form
so
of
we're
measurements.
like, okay, wait, like it took us a little bit.
Your per unit cost isn't the same. You can figure out per ounce, but it's per kilogram there.
So we tried to get as close as possible, and what we discovered was quite interesting. And I'm gonna use 3 different ingredients as an example, or 3 different things that you could buy, starting with bananas, which were 49 cents at Sam's before we left the States, 50 cents a pound, and this is per pound, 50 cents a pound in a Canadian Walmart, 99 cents a pound in the Costco in Anchorage, and then $1.69 a pound in, I think, Glen Allen it was. Yeah. Peanut butter kind of followed the same thing. Actually, it was a little bit cheaper in Canada to do a 40-ounce thing of Jif. It was $5.49 for that 40-ounce can at Sam's, $4.77 in Canada, $5.70 in Costco, so a little bit pricier than the lower 48. And then $11.49 for the same thing in the town of Glen Allen, and actually $25 in king salmon, where we flew in to like go to Brooks Falls. So you've got Canada coming in less on that one. And then for bread, wheat bread at Walmart was $2.17 in the States, $1.44 in Canada, $4.29 because for like a 9-grain bread at Costco in Anchorage, I couldn't really find like a comparable wheat. And then $7.79 a loaf in a small town, Alaska. So what the unique thing that we discovered is, yes, if you're gonna go straight from the States to Alaska and you're going to just spend time in Anchorage and Fairbanks and do your major stock ups there, the prices are so negligible.
Yes.
Pretty much across the board. Canada surprisingly, and some of you Canadians were like, you get a discount. Well, when we did the calculations, it wasn't quite like a 30% discount, right. But we did find a lot of things that were cheaper to get in Canada. Some things were expensive, like protein powder in Canada was way more expensive, even after all the conversions, than it was like at the Sam's Club in the lower 48. But maple syrup was a lot cheaper in Canada. Obviously, that makes sense. So you could actually, I think it's gonna depend on what you wanna stock up on, like the type of ingredient, whether you wanna do it in the States or in Canada, but I think we can all for sure agree that remote small towns in Alaska are insane.
Well, remote small towns everywhere are always more expensive, but it was on steroids in Alaska. And the stock up for us was a lot of peace of mind too, like having the ingredients that we know we use a lot of long term, because you don't want to run out of those ingredients when you're in a small town. And if you have any specialized dietary requirements,
like dairy-free.
She's dairy-free, so we have some dairy-free cheese that we buy. Like, you're gonna have a lot harder time finding that if you're in a different country, or if you're in Alaska. Even sometimes at the bigger stores, we had a list of ingredients that we were getting price checks for, and there were several stores that did not have some of the ingredients that we were trying to price check.
So did we go a little overboard?
Yes.
Yeah. But I think for like key things like our dairy-free chocolate chips, and so, like, we definitely went overboard on the peanut butter because the prices were so negligible with that. And you have to make sure that, like, you're not always going to be around Anchorage or Fairbanks to go to a Costco to get those prices. So you have to plan out, like, maybe you need to stock up until you can get to Anchorage and then, you know,
I was going to say, if we did anything different, we would stock up and we'd know how long it was going to be till we were going to be in Anchorage.
Correct.
And just stock up to that point, then go to Costco in Anchorage and get those things there.
One thing I did want to mention, though, about groceries is and this is, again, is peace of mind too, you cannot predict what is going to be on store shelves. Now, when we were in Anchorage, I actually popped over to Target and we went over to Walmart, and there was a lot of empty shelves. And actually earlier in June, we had friends tell us, the same ones with the fireweed jelly, that there was a milk shortage because a cargo ship that had been going to Alaska had mechanical issues and couldn't make it, so that you like could not buy milk in most of Alaska. So you do have to be aware that, like, because they're shipping a lot of things in, maybe again, peace of mind to stock up. You can't stock up on milk, obviously.
I mean, you could freeze it, but
yeah, you could buy milk powder and do it that way. But that's just something to be aware of too, because we were kind of shocked to see some store shelves just completely bare.
And you have to remember, I just want to say this, you have to remember Alaska is a huge state, and I think there are 9 Walmarts, if I remember correctly, in the entire state. Most of them in the
7 are in Anchorage
Wasilla area. And so if you're going up to Alaska and you're like, oh, there's a Costco there. Yes, there's one in Anchorage.
And one in Fairbanks.
Alaska is large. So you could be hours and hours and hours away from Anchorage and not be near a Costco. So just plan your shopping around the big trip, the big locations, and you're going to be A-okay.
So as a result of our stock up, we ended up spending an average, so we were up there, 2.5 months, an average of like $422 a month on groceries, just on food for groceries.
And that's even with our stockpile already in existence.
That's with our stockpile. And that's about normal what we would like to spend. We shoot for around $400 a month. It's been with inflation creeping up to about $500 a month for groceries. But I do think our stock up helped our budget be a little bit more normal throughout Alaska, and then we could just pick up the things that we actually needed and didn't have, like produce and meat and things like that. When it comes to restaurants, now this is something I did not expect. Restaurants are so stinking pricey. Like, you think they're gonna be a little more expensive. You're in a touristy area.
We went out to eat here the other day, and it cost us $40, I think it was,
that
for our
felt
whole bill.
So
and we're just like,
so
I was just
nice.
like, oh wow,
like,
$40, that's not bad.
Yeah, because the one that I'm thinking of especially, which was the worst, the most high priced restaurant, and we weren't going out and finding like restaurants that were like black tie or anything.
Do we look like black tie people?
No. There was a spot in Seward, and I feel like we keep mentioning Seward quite a bit, but I don't even remember what it was called, but you got a burger and fries. I got a salad with some chicken on it.
Did we get a beverage? I think we just got waters.
No, we just got waters, and then I ordered an extra plate of fries to have my salad because, you know, balance. And it was $80 after tip.
Yep.
Like, legit $80. Like, how is that even? Again, it's a short tourist season. They want to squeeze the money out of you, but
And their products are more expensive to ship in.
ship
all
in,
of that.
yes.
All of that piles together to make eating out
But I think
very
that's
expensive.
something that like I was not aware of going in. So that's something I would say, like if you really like to eat out, make sure you set aside more of your budget for that, because we ended up spending for the whole
I don't know this number.
the whole 2.5 months, $1,495 in just restaurants.
Wow.
So about an average of like $500 a month in restaurants. And normally you and I go out to eat maybe once a week and we spend maybe like $200. Like we're so cheap about that.
It would have been like $400 for the 2 months.
So that was where we were just like, but also you're in Alaska and you
Right.
want to experience local flavors and things like that.
And doing that is time you're not spending in the kitchen. It saves us time to go do that. So I'm justifying the $1,400.
Justifying it. Let's move on to fuel costs, because we spent about $3,000 in fuel from the Canadian border to Alaska, all the way out through Alaska, and we kind of stopped
at the
Alaska border from like pulling out of our $15,000 fund. That was for campgrounds and activities and fuels. But we are sharing restaurants and groceries because a lot of you wanted to know like what you would typically spend. Now that did not come out of the $15,000 for us because that was just like normal budget.
The confusion we're trying to avoid and probably doing a really bad job of doing is we don't recommend you try to go to Alaska in your RV on a $15,000 budget. Our $15,000 was for specific things, like she said, and we were still earning income from my freelance work, from Kalyn's business, and from the YouTube channel. So our normal budget was still had money coming into it and was still going out for the eating out and groceries and all of that stuff. The $15,000 was to give us space where we felt like we could go out on these excursions because we had saved up for it.
And to spend more in eating out because we had saved up, you know, for other areas.
So are you all confused about that?
I know. Like, ask us questions in the comments. We'll make sure to clear it up. Just to summarize, about $2,500 in campgrounds, about $5,100 in activities, $3,000 in fuel. So out of what we had specifically set aside of that $15K, we walked away with $4,345.41, which is insane to me. So if we wanted to, we could add in the $1,100 that we spent to get from the Alaska border back to
Canada.
US. We could take that out of it. We could also talk about the repairs that we had, which was we bought 2 new tires, we had a slide repair, that was about $800. We had room, we could take that out of it. And
$800 between everything.
Right.
Not just the slide repair.
Yes, and the tires. All of it, all like repair-wise. And then for the $1,495 in eating out, we could even take that out of it if we wanted to and be left with, you know, just under $1,000 of the $15K. So in actuality, I think it was a really good number for us. And I think, again, like what you said, and I feel like we need to reiterate this, if you are going up just thinking you're going to spend $15K the entire time on everything.
Campgrounds, food, everything.
Everything, toiletries, like we didn't even talk about personal care items that we bought up there or pet food or anything like that. It's going to be very difficult, if not impossible.
You can do it, you just can't go on the excursions.
Right.
Because the excursions are where you're going to be saving your money because those are your big ticket items.
But I do hope that this helps you plan to say how much money do we think we're going to spend in these areas and how much money do we need to take up. For us, it was just the concern of fuel, activities, and campgrounds.
Knowing that everything was more expensive, we just wanted that buffer to be able to pull from so that our budget didn't feel the pinch.
Exactly.
If you do ever want a clearer look at our spending, Kalyn every month has done a spending breakdown on Instagram. You can follow us over there at Open Roading. You can just scroll. It's easy to find her posts that she will do every month that outlines how much we spent for the entire month, and she breaks it down by category for you.
All the monthly bills that we have, all the living expenses, all the extra
stuff. So
stuff.
if you look at June, July, and August of those breakdowns, you'll kind of get a monthly look, a snapshot of like what our spending looked like in all categories, including the $15,000, including you know, money that came from anywhere. That's all the spending we did.
I actually really need to be like in here.
Right
here. There we, oh, she's like,
she's gonna leave.
Oh, she's pouting. Okay.
We took her couch.
Our last major topic that we wanted to talk about was caravanning.
Hate it. Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding.
We had a couple of questions about like, what do you think would have been different if you've been traveling alone the entire time? Would you go with a group again, a larger group? Do you think going with Wild RV Life made the trip more enjoyable and safer? So
That's a lot of categories to hit all at once.
It's a lot of topics to hit. We loved traveling with Craig and Victoria throughout the summer. I think it was a great way to do Alaska. And just as like an aside, so you have some background in terms of, we met them in like 2021 or beginning of 2022 at a boondocking spot outside Phoenix and just sort of really hit it off. And so we decided it would be really fun to travel together to Alaska. And so definitely more enjoyable. Safer?
Yes.
Yeah. I think so.
It gives you peace of mind. Well, for instance, when our tire blew out, they were behind us.
Right.
And so just having an extra set of hands,
extra
set of tools, extra set of know-how, it's just really helpful to just have that option available.
Right.
Whereas when you're on your own, you're on your own. One thing about safety that I would say if you're traveling on your own is, this is just me personally, I wouldn't do it without having Starlink. And for the reason for that is, if you end up stranded somewhere, if you break an axle or your truck breaks down and you don't have a second vehicle or whatever situation you're in and you are literally stranded, having the ability to fire up the Starlink to get access to the internet and then be able to make calls on your phone via Starlink, like that reduces a lot of the fears for me when it comes to safety.
And I don't think we like needed to necessarily go with someone. Like, I think if we had gone by ourselves, it would have been fine. We would have figured it out. But it was like that other safety net of knowing, like when you're on the walkie-talkies on travel day, that you can let them know what's happening with their rig. They can see what's happening with your rig. You can know who's Bob in the front, where you can see like they're hitting frost heave. Okay, now we got to slow down. So yeah, so like it was great safety wise, but it was even more so fun because they're such great friends.
Yeah.
And if you don't have anyone to go with and you don't want to go alone, we actually did meet some people in Denali National Park who were part of a 16 RV caravan.
Yep.
So it was like a tour group. Everyone has their own RVs, but they travel with a mechanic.
Yep.
So on the way to Alaska and throughout Alaska, if you have issues, they have someone there to help fix it for you.
And those are paid caravans.
Yes.
So you pay a fee to be part of that caravan and do that. And that particular caravan, I don't know if this is common, that particular caravan, you go up to Alaska, they take you on a bunch of tours, and then you're done.
Yeah.
And you're on your own.
You're responsible to
Get
leave
yourself
Alaska.
Back.
Yeah.
Good luck.
But hopefully you make some friends where you decide to caravan with them on the way back. I do feel like we kind of talked, like sprinkled in throughout each topic what we would do differently. And we'll just kind of summarize in terms of going a different time of year a little bit. I would go in something smaller.
I was going to say, we didn't specifically say we'd go in something smaller, but when we go back, we still have 3 national parks.
So we have to go back.
We have to go back at some point, and if we do it in RV style, we will have to either rent a Class C RV or get a camper van or something like that, because smaller, just being able to be nimble and get in and out of places is definitely the better option as opposed to towing a long fifth wheel.
And the other thing we've discussed is you can also like fly in and also rent an RV there, or you could fly in, particularly if you want to do the inside passage, which is like all those little islands around Juneau and Ketchikan and everything. You might not want to rely on the ferry system to be able to get you around, because number one, it is really expensive for an RV. That's one of the reasons why we didn't do that this summer. And it's very unreliable because the boats are really old. So if you wanted to like do a cruise or fly in, like I feel like those are options on our list. I don't know that we would take something this big up there again.
And the other thing I think that we both wish we had done more of and would do again in the future is more hiking.
Yes.
We might cancel a couple of the excursions and just explore some of the more hiking areas. Like, I was really jealous when you went on the
Lazy Mountain.
She came back and showed me the pictures, and I was just like, man, I was working that day editing.
Yeah.
But it was just like, there's so many like beautiful hiking trails.
Especially in Hatcher Pass.
Yeah, that you could take.
And that's free. That's free. Yeah.
There's one question that a lot of people asked if we would do differently, and that is, would we haul the motorcycle up? I keep getting that over and over again, and a lot of times I think it's because people think we don't use it at all because you don't see it on the videos. And I've explained this in some of the comments, but like, we don't have good action cameras right now, so if I ride somewhere alone, there's no getting video of it. So, and most of the time the bike is ridden, I'm riding it somewhere alone. For me, it's worth it, because for me, it's the second vehicle. It's having that peace of mind. If we're driving somewhere, the truck breaks down, we've actually experienced this. We have that in the motorcycle to go somewhere and get something and get parts. So for me, taking it off, putting it back on the front of the truck, that's part of setup and tear down, so it doesn't bother me at all. It's not like I'm complaining about it.
In Alaska, like we did do the one ride together that we filmed in Hatcher Pass. But we also used it to scout McCarthy Road before we filmed.
We didn't do the whole road, but we got to
in like
the washout area.
Yep, just to see what it was, to scout. You took a whole afternoon to do some boondocking scouting. Yeah, to try to find a spot for us so that we didn't have to take 2 big rigs and try to figure out where we needed to go. So you were able to take pictures and videos. So it was handy to have up there. I don't think it's not a big deal for us.
It isn't.
To have it.
It isn't. And if you enjoy, if you're wondering if it's worth it to take your motorcycle up there, if you have an adventure bike, like if you enjoy adventure biking and you're planning on making the time to adventure bike, it's but in my opinion, I saw a ton of adventure bikes up there, both on the main roads and on the back roads. There's a lot of stuff that you can explore up there on a motorcycle.
Trinity, coming up.
Come on.
Okay,
come on.
Here we go.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right, did we cover everything? We done?
I think we're finished, although I'm sure you're right in my face. I am sure that we have missed something, so please leave a comment if you're like, oh, but I have a question about this.
Or if you've been to Alaska and you have like things that we didn't cover, drop those in the comments. If you're planning a trip to Alaska, be sure to check the comments because I'm sure it's going to be a treasure trove of stuff.
Yes.
But there is one question we didn't answer, and that is, do we recommend taking a fifth wheel or RV and going and RVing Alaska?
Oh yeah, for sure. You can do it.
Yeah.
You can do it, and you should do it.
You should.
It's so much fun. Do it with friends if you can. That makes it even more fun. And I think you'll be fine. Like, don't be scared. I think there's a lot of fear mongering about taking a rig to Alaska, and you can do it.
Next week on the channel, we are straying from our normal content and we're releasing the extended cut of our Alcan journey from Dawson City to the Alaska border. We're taking those 3 videos, smashing them all together. But wait, there's more. We're not just doing that. We're combing through all that footage right now and looking for tidbits that did not make the original videos, and we're pushing them in just like a normal director's cut, extended cut.
So it'll be like extended cut. And then the week after that, we have one more video that we are doing in Canada before we actually cross the border into the United States, where we start a brand new series of some really interesting things that we might see along the way. So a lot coming to you. We're excited to share it, and we'll see you next week.
See you later.